Hello, I'm Michael Novak, and welcome to Philharmonic First Fridays at 4, a series of musical programs featuring members of the Santa Maria Philharmonic in unique and intimate settings throughout the county. Today we are in Santa Barbara at the First Congregational Church on State Street, not far from the famous Santa Barbara Mission. Established in the 1860s, the current building was dedicated in 1937, and it is a favorite venue for musicians for chamber music and for solo recitals because we love the acoustics here. Our featured performer today is Stephen Gross, principal horn with the Santa Maria Philharmonic. Stephen is internationally known on the French horn as a soloist, as a clinician, as a lecturer, and a teacher, and a recording artist, so he does it all. Before coming to the Central Coast to teach at UCSB, Stephen was a member of the Atlanta Symphony, the National Symphony in Washington, D.C., and the Cincinnati Chamber Orchestra. Joining Steve on today's program are Pascal Salomon, piano, and Julie Gross, French horn. A special thanks to our sponsors, Charles Boyd and Dan Woodson. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Stephen Gross, and I'm principal horn of the Santa Maria Philharmonic. I'm honored to be asked to present a program about my instrument. First of all, it's an instrument of considerable antiquity, and most every culture has an instrument that's like a horn in that the lips vibrate and the sound is amplified by something else. So for example, we have some cultures using a conch shell like this. And by buzzing my lips, this will amplify the sound as follows. So the sound can be amplified, of course, by a shell, a piece of wood, or better yet, metal. And in the European world, the Romans used a quote-unquote horn to considerable historical effect by putting a long tube together like this. And they used it as part of their army. And it's recorded that Julius Caesar used several thousand of these instruments when he invaded Britain. It made quite a racket and I'm sure scared lots of people. So it would sound something like this. So you can imagine several thousand of these put together to terrify the people that were invaded. But we have something here called a mouthpiece, which amplifies the sound. Anybody can play a brass instrument by doing just the things you wanted to do to your 8th grade grammar teacher. But the principle is the same. Later on, the metals became more sophisticated, and it was found that alloys of brass produced the best sound. Silver, gold were pretty, but they didn't resonate very well. Brass is an alloy made of copper and zinc, and also there can be also some nickel in it depending on the color. So what I want to show you next is the horn wrapped into a coil like this. And this is the shape of the modern instrument, but it began with a very utilitarian purpose. Specifically, it was a great thing to do for the medieval institution of the hunt, where the royalty got together and they had parties and they went chasing foxes or other sorts of animals. But since cell phones were not yet on the scene, they had to have ways to communicate with each other. So they coiled the metal together and carried it like this on horseback, so they could have a portable signaling instrument anywhere they went. Here you have a sample, and what we have, it's very interesting, is that various calls were developed so that the hunting parties could communicate with each other. For example, there were signals about water for the hounds, or the stag has so many antlers, etc., etc. And I do want to show you something interesting that developed. This is a painted bell. It originally was lamp black, and the reason these bells got painted is the sparkle that was created by the metal spooked the horses. So the bell was darkened, and then it got later very much more sophisticated with paintings and very original artwork. The instrument also came very slowly into the orchestra, and I do want to tell you an interesting story about how our instrument got its name. In the English language, it's called the French horn, but there's nothing really French about it. It so happens that the first English speakers that saw the instrument saw it at the Palace of Versailles near Paris, the home of the Sun King and other French monarchs. And so they assumed mistakenly it was a French horn. It's really more an origin from Central Europe. As the horn developed, it gradually became involved in the orchestra. And as you can see, this is an example of an orchestral instrument. And what helped the horn adopt itself to these ensembles is what are called crooks. And they are coils of tubing like this that can be put into the instrument for every key. For example, this is the F crook. So we take the corpus here, we put the crook in, the mouthpiece, and then we can play anything that's written in C. And of course, we have various other crooks. For example, here we have an E crook, longer yet, this, and longest yet, we go down to low B flat, which is the fifth below the F. But a player of the 18th century would carry a box full of these crooks along with this instrument. So when the key changed for each movement, the person could pull out the crooks. But however, as music developed further, it had to have an invention called the valves. But before we talk about those, I want to mention that the natural horn players had to play only notes in the so-called overtone series. That is, notes that can only be played with the lips alone, changing the tension. So we would have for example. But we could get all the sounds in the middle by what's called hand stopping like this. So I will demonstrate for you now how to play a scale by using the right hand. We use various positions here. There's actually 7 of them. We can go completely out or almost closed. The interesting thing about the instrument is the right hand is still in the bell because we can have a very interesting and evocative effect. It's colored by the hand. So we only take it out if we want a really raucous effect. Otherwise, it gives us a very, very gentle quality. Last, we have the valve. It was invented around at the turn of the 20th century. And as we can see here, the valve is pushed down and it adds tubing. We have push down second, it goes down a half step, first, a full step, and then third valve is a step and a half. So we can play a scale, and you can kind of think of these valves as just adding on crooks. So for example, we play a scale like this. And then also one thing that was further developed was we could combine crook and F, a crook and B flat, and put a thumb valve here like this. So we have, as you can see, we have ranks of tubing for first, second, and third valve, so we can pretty much cover the whole range of the horn. The horn is regarded as one of the most challenging instruments because we have these very, very long tubes. However, our mouthpiece, as you can see, is the size of a dime. The problem is it's an acoustical mismatch. We should really have a much larger instrument, but we have this tiny mouthpiece because it produces the best sound. So horn players miss notes maybe a little bit more often than other instruments because of this difficulty, but we get a beautiful sound and a beautiful rush, if you will, by playing music. So I'm going to demonstrate for you now the first horn entrance in Debussy's Afternoon of the Faun, like so. I hope you enjoyed my introduction to the instrument, which we regard as the most evocative, powerful, and noble of all the instruments. We're going to go on with our program. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to open the program by performing a work for a natural horn. It's written by a 20th century composer, Benjamin Britten, and it was selected specifically for the sounds of the natural horn. I will play the prologue. The piece is a serenade for horn, tenor, and strings. It's a great masterpiece. It's with orchestra and tenor, text by Tennyson and other English poets. What you will hear is notes that sound quote-unquote wrong and out of tune. But Britten wrote it specifically to emphasize those sounds, to bring back the ancient sound of the natural horn. Enjoy. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is a composer. Many of you have heard his music, and some of you may have heard and seen the movie Amadeus or the play. Mozart liked to write for horn. He wrote 3 complete concertis and 3 incomplete movements and an unfinished concerto. And one of the things he liked to do with his horn playing was to fashion it in such a way as that it resembled the hunt, where people are carrying horns and signaling to each other. And the form that he preferred was the so-called rondo, which is in 6/8 time, which is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this really fits most closely with the hoofbeats of a horse, thus giving a very real effect to Mozart's music. Mozart had some good friends who were wind players, and especially one horn player named Ignaz Leitgeb, who grew up with Mozart in Salzburg and moved before Mozart to Vienna. And they were such great friends that they played a lot of jokes on each other. Leitgeb was regarded as a very fine hornist, but Mozart wrote music that made fun of him. For example, he dedicated one of his concertos to the donkey, ox, and fool Leitgeb. And he put marks in his music, such as bleating of sheep before the trills. The piece we're going to play is the rondo from the second concerto of Mozart, and there are 2 jokes in it. So the first joke is one where Mozart is making fun of the right hand in the bell, as we talked about earlier in the history of the horn. So you will hear Pascal making that rap, 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 rap fun of the horn player when we play this sample. The second joke that's in this piece is Mozart making fun of Leitgeb's memory. So at one point, Mozart writes the piece so as to resemble the soloist completely forgetting his line. And then it actually happens twice, and Mozart comes back in. At the very end of the piece, the theme is pounded in, like you better remember this now. So this is the example of the soloist forgetting the part. Mozart composed a great deal of music. It's well-known: symphonies, operas, chamber music, so forth, concertos. But he also wrote some interesting everyday music for his friends. We're going to play a horn duet by Mozart, and introduce Julie. She plays fourth horn, and I play first horn in the Santa Maria Philharmonic. So we're going to make some music together. We are married, and we make beautiful music. So there is a musical joke, as you might expect, with Mozart. As we go on to the piece, you will hear us slow down and slow down and slow down, because Mozart, as a joke, wrote some extra bars of music that really don't belong in there. And to a listener of the era, it might have sounded kind of jarring. So enjoy. I'm now going to play something that illustrates the lyrical and warm aspects of the horn. Our instrument is known for its evocative, middle register character. We don't specialize in speed, such as trumpet or violin. Rather, we want to make someone feel emotions, love, anger, companionship, what have you. And I'm going to play a piece by Camille Saint-Saëns, and he is a late 19th century French composer, and this is his Romance, Opus 36. I will close the program with Václav Nelibel's Scherzo Concertante. Václav Nelibel is a Czech-American composer. Born in Prague, he emigrated to the United States after World War II. He's noted as primarily a composer of very exciting and interesting wind and brass music. The Scherzo Concertante features very complex rhythms, a lot of juxtapositions of sound and rhythm. Hope you enjoyed the program.